Welcome to the channel. I'm a doctor. I've seen things that don't always fit into textbooks, moments that no protocol can prepare you for. Some of these stories are my own. Others were shared with me by colleagues, nurses, paramedics, people who, like me, carry the weight of these moments long after the shift ends. They say a baby's smile is the purest thing in the world. But that day, something about it made me shiver. It's not because it wasn't adorable, but because it was saying something else. It was supposed to be a routine checkup. Nothing urgent, nothing unusual. Just a general follow-up. But sometimes the most unexpected things hide inside what looks like routine. They walked in together. A young couple, the kind still getting used to diaper bags, baby bottles, and sleepless nights. He held the baby in his arms with an almost reverent gentleness. She carried the baby bag in his medical notebook, her hair tied up in a ruche, wearing a smile that was half pride, half nerves. The baby was just over 2 months old, wrapped in a soft sky blue blanket, the kind that's hand-knitted with tiny tassels at the corners. His cheeks were flushed, not from fever, but from the warmth of the blanket and the closeness of his father's chest. They laid him down gently on the examination table. He barely made a sound, sleeping with that rare peace only found in those who still don't know what the world is. "We just want to make sure everything's okay," the mother said softly as she caressed his forehead. "So far, he's been great. Eats well. Sleeps, more or less." They both laughed. That nervous laugh first-time parents have. And yes, you could tell it was their first child. Their every move was careful, deliberate, as if the baby might shatter with one wrong touch. And despite the exhaustion drawn across their faces, there was something in their eyes. A fragile kind of hope. Like the entire future of the universe was cradled in that tiny body. I began the checkup as usual. Muscle tone, appropriate. Reflexes, present. Breathing clear. No fever, no rash, no warning signs. Everything looked good. And then, as I often do with little ones, I leaned in, spoke in a high, playful tone, and made a funny face. I expected a slight reaction, maybe a stare, a gurgle. But instead, the baby smiled, and that's when I frowned. It wasn't the smile itself. It was adorable, sweet, even contagious. But it was odd. The right corner of his mouth curved up gently. But the left side didn't move. Not even slightly. Not the tiniest attempt to mimic the other side. It was like looking at a beautiful painting hanging crooked. It's beautiful, yes. But clearly something was wrong. I leaned in again, repeated the silly face. And again, the same response, a lopsided smile. As if only half of his face knew he was happy. I stayed quiet for a moment. A small silence, harmless on the surface. But inside me, a voice was whispering, "Look again. Something's not right." I paused. It was subtle, could have been nothing. A temporary nerve issue, maybe? Fatigue? Just one of those baby quirks? Still, I asked, "Have you noticed anything odd when he cries or smiles?" The mother looked at her partner, a little uncertain. "Now that you mention it, he does cry more from one side." The father added, "Yeah, we thought it was just a baby thing. And honestly, it could have been, but my gut wouldn't let it go." I told them gently I'd like to run a few tests, just to be safe. They looked worried, but nodded. We started with a basic neurological screening. Everything seemed normal. No limb weakness, no obvious sensory deficits. But the asymmetry remained, so I referred them to a pediatric neurologist for imaging. And then we waited a week later, my phone rang. It was the pediatric neurologist, a meticulous Manone who never calls unless he has something concrete to say. I answered immediately. "Doctor." There was a brief pause. Not hesitation, just caution, like he was choosing his words carefully. His voice was calm. Too calm, but underneath it I could hear something else. A quiet tension. "The kind you can't ignore. You were right to dig deeper," he said. "The MRI confirmed our concerns." I didn't say a word. I hadn't even asked a question yet. But I already knew something big was coming. "It's a congenital brain malformation," he continued. "Hemimegalencephaly." And suddenly, everything made sense. It's a diagnosis you rarely catch this early. Most cases aren't identified until seizures begin, or motor delays become obvious. But in this case, The only clue had been a crooked smile. A smile that everyone else had missed. Everyone except the baby. That tiny face, without a single word, had been trying to tell us something. The left hemisphere is enlarged and disorganized, he explained. There are white matter changes. You'll likely develop epilepsy. I felt the air in the room grow heavier, not because I didn't know the diagnosis, but because no one had seen it coming. A healthy-looking baby. Attentive, loving parents. A life just beginning, and now everything was about to change. Thank you for sending him when you did, the neurologist said before hanging up. His words were kind, but to me, they didn't feel like a victory. I stared at the phone for a while. That cold, lifeless object had just delivered a devastating truth, because in medicine, there are moments when you know you did the right thing, but that doesn't make it hurt any less. Telling the parents was one of the hardest things I've done in a long time. I brought them in as if it were any other appointment. But my voice had lost its usual lightness, and they noticed. They sat across from me. The baby slept peacefully in his mother's arms, unaware. She gently rocked him, while the father kept his eyes locked on mine, like he was bracing for what I hadn't said yet. I took a deep breath, began. I spoke carefully, clearly, no unnecessary flourishes, but without letting the weight of the words crush them either. The scan revealed a rare neurological condition. It's called hemimegalencephaly. It's a congenital brain malformation. One of the hemispheres is larger than normal, and it's not developing properly. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was thick, heavy, like the air itself had turned to stone. The mother stopped rocking the baby, her eyes locked onto mine, searching between the lines for a way out, a loophole, a chance that maybe she had misheard. The father lowered his gaze to the floor, clenched his fists against his knees, as if to keep himself from falling apart, and I continued. This may cause developmental delays. There's a high risk of seizures. You'll need constant care. A multidisciplinary team, therapies, pediatric neurology. It's heartbreaking to tell parents that the life they had imagined for their child and for themselves had just changed. No one cried, not right away, because sometimes pain doesn't scream. Sometimes it just sits there, suspended, silent, beating in the chest. Finally, the mother spoke. Barely a whisper, "Did we do something wrong?" And without thinking, I shook my head. Firmly, honestly, no. Absolutely not. You did everything right. You brought him in. You asked. You observed. You trusted your instincts and ours. Because of that, we can help him now. She nodded slowly and gently stroked the baby's forehead. With a tenderness so deep, it hurt to watch. In medical school, they teach us how to diagnose, how to treat, but no one teaches you how to break a mother's heart. How to look a father in the eyes and tell him that the path he had planned might no longer exist. He will now have to build a new one, day by day. With more fear, yes, but also with more love than he ever thought himself capable of. It's wild, isn't it? How something so small like the angle of a smile can carry such a big message. They teach us in school to observe, to take notes. But this was beyond clinical. This was instinct, the kind of thing that keeps you up at night wondering, what if I hadn't paid attention? Months later, they came back for a follow-up. The baby had started therapy. He was moving more, making sounds, and when I greeted him, he smiled again, still lopsided, still imperfect. But this time, it didn't unsettle me, because behind that smile, there was something else now. A mother who no longer trembled, but asked firm questions. A father who no longer clenched his fists, but took notes. A team that had decided to fight, and in that small, uneven curve, I saw something stronger than the diagnosis, hope and determination. Sometimes, the quietest signs are the ones that scream the loudest. You just have to be willing to look and to listen. Has something like this ever happened to you? Small detail you almost ignored that ended up changing everything? Tell us your story in the comments or share it with us. We'd love to hear from you. And if this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. This channel is where medicine meets humanity, where the smallest details become the biggest stories. Till next time.